Hey, welcome to 1500ESPN.com. I'm Derek Wetmore, and this is Andrew Kramer. We're at the press box in TCF Bank Stadium where the Vikings fell to 2-4 today after a loss to the Detroit Lions. We'll talk about a couple of things in this Vikings video. Mike Zimmer with some very interesting comments after the game. It seems pretty clear that he's unhappy with his team after Sunday's performance and really all week of practice. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Teddy Bridgewater's start, how it contrasts with his first start of his career, where he looked very good against the Atlanta Falcons. Today, not so much. And then we'll talk about the Vikings offensive line just getting dominated by the Detroit Lions' physical defensive front. For starters, Mike Zimmer said after the game that he's been finding players this week more than normal. He says he finds players anytime they miss a meeting or are late for a treatment, and this week it was more than normal. He's had other weeks where players haven't been fined, but it sounded to me based on not his demeanor, but the words that he used, kind of the tone that he tried to convey. He's kind of fed up with this team right now for some of that lack of disciplinary stuff. Andrew, on the field, how did that manifest itself today? Were there anything that you saw that, boy, this team, maybe they are lacking some discipline on game days?
Well, you saw the penalties. This has been an issue for this team even going back into the preseason. There were just flags thrown. One holding from Vlad DeCoste, a guy who's had 4 penalties now just in his 3 starts. Negates a Matt Asiata first down run. There's just things in terms of that you can point out to him. But it's just the inconsistencies mainly on the offensive side of the ball. For the second straight week, this offensive line has been just terrible. Mm-hmm. And really, it's one of the main problems, regardless of who's at quarterback. The line is not able to protect that person and keep him upright. We saw Teddy Bridgewater. He's a mobile guy. He's a guy that can move around. He seemed to have a better sense in the pocket than what Christian Ponder has displayed. Yeah. But not even he could avoid the pressure today. He got sacked 8 times. This offensive line has allowed 14 sacks in the last 2 games. There's just no excuse for that. And obviously some of those can be pegged on the quarterback, but not all of them. Most of that pressure was coming directly from lapses in pass protection, whether it was from the 5 down linemen or the running backs in pass protection. No matter what they did to try and get extra pass protection in to protect Teddy, it wasn't working today. And that manifested itself on the board in 3 points.
Yeah. Now, what did the offensive line specifically do poorly? It seemed like in pass protection they struggled at both tackle positions. Yep. And maybe you can take me through to some of the interior struggles. What did you see from the offensive line that really has to change going forward for the Vikings?
I saw it from the both tackle spots, but you go into this game and they have one of the best defensive tackle tandems in the interior in the entire NFL. And when your tackles on the edges aren't holding things down, that's a complete breakdown in protection where you have pressure coming from pretty much all 4 spots. And the Lions didn't have to blitz much. They did. And when they did, they got after Teddy. But they didn't have to get pressure on him. I believe over half of his throws were pressured. They just didn't design. I didn't see Norv Turner calling many designed rollouts. I didn't see him trying to get Teddy on the run very much, which was surprising to me. They mainly tried to stand him up in the pocket and have him throw, and that just was not working for an offensive line that, as you were pointing out, both of its tackles were liabilities today. Yeah. We saw DeAndre Levy get pressure from Phil Loadholt's side. Ziggy Ansah was getting pressure all day from Khalil's side. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't a good game all around.
So is it more about Detroit has a great defensive line and that physical front, or is it real genuine lapses from the Vikings?
Genuine lapses from the Vikings. We just saw last week the Packers, who do not have a formidable pass rush by any stretch of any measure in the NFL. And LaTroy Guion goes out and gets a sack and a half 10 days ago. This isn't just this is what we saw today. 8 sacks was a manifestation of both a great defensive pass rush combined with a bad offensive line. Both of those things combined to make what you saw today, but you can't just put this on, it was a good Detroit team. No, because they've had these issues against mediocre pass rushes in the past, and we just saw it kind of exposed today.
Now, Teddy, as I mentioned earlier, did look great against Atlanta, and even in relief against the Saints. What was different today? Because I know that he had protection issues, and I know there were definitely some drops by receivers, some balls that you would like to see caught as a Vikings fan or as a Vikings coaching staff. Teddy kind of brushed that stuff off after the game when I asked him about it. But individually for him, what things did Teddy do different today that he maybe didn't do as well in his first start against the Falcons?
He was a little off on some throws. You could just tell both quarterbacks today, Matthew Stafford and Teddy, weren't necessarily putting on any offensive clinic by any stretch of the imagination. But Teddy just wasn't comfortable from the get-go. You could tell after those first couple of pressures and first couple of sacks. You could tell that gets into a quarterback's head, especially a rookie who's just on his second NFL start. Now, it's sometimes we forget that this guy's just a rookie because obviously his first start, he puts up 550 yards and 41 points. So as Teddy even said in his press conference, the expectations were raised externally on him. And then you see today come down and the Lions make him look like a rookie. And really, that's just what you have to expect out of Teddy Bridgewater. But still, talking to guys in the locker room, Jarius Wright was saying, hey, he throughout the entire time when things were collapsing around him, he still was poised in the huddle. You wouldn't have known he was a rookie quarterback. There was no shake in his voice, which I guess could be the lone positive you take away from this, because on the field, Teddy threw 3 interceptions. 2 of those were tipped either at the line or by the receiver. And so all around, there's nothing to point at statistically and say that he had a good game by any means.
And we'll talk about those interceptions in the Purple podcast that we're about to go record. We'll post them to the show page. As always, just go up to shows, drag down to Vikings, the Purple podcast, and you'll see all of our archived Vikings podcasts on there. One final question before we go on this video. Andrew, what is the Vikings' biggest concern going forward?
Their offensive line. I mean, if to take the biggest pressure off of a rookie quarterback, you need a running game. And these 2 running backs they gave Jerick McKinnon the start today, which we're not even talking about because of all the other ineptitude that was going on in the offense. When you have the inexperience at running back, you need the offensive line to do as much as they can for him, and for the rookie quarterback then to have that kind of help and asset in the running game. The offensive line is not protecting the quarterback when he needs to throw, and they're not giving him running lanes when they need to run. That is the biggest concern by far going into a week where they have to prepare for the Buffalo Bills, one of the better defensive lines in football.
We'll have plenty more on that on the Purple Podcast, as I just mentioned, and keep checking back to 1500ESPN.com. We'll have all the Vikings coverage. You can even just bookmark our Vikings page. We'll have news, opinions, analysis throughout the week. Andrew's going to break down the film of this game. Imagine that's not going to be a very fun film session. A lot of mistakes to cut through. So keep checking all of our Vikings content. From TCF Bank Stadium, for Andrew Kramer, I'm Derek Wetmore. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.